Oh, it's hidden. See if I can open it up. I see what you mean, but I can't.
Yeah, and if you click on the video, it says stop video, you'll start video.
Yeah, okay. Just lost the whole damn thing again. Go ahead, just keep going. I can hear you anyway, so.
Just push your mouse.
Start
Just
the
push your
meeting.
mouse at the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
Yes, but I've got a taskbar down there that's hiding it.
Okay, let's start the meeting.
ahead.
We're going to do roll call. Helene Lieb here.
Lee Jenkins here.
Fran?
Fran Collins here.
Rob? Rob?
Rob
Hillman here.
Angie?
Jean Healy Dippled here.
Can you
Yes.
not hear me?
We can hear you, Rob, but now you're frozen.
Okay.
It's that or I'm having a stroke.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You're
you
like,
hear
you're
me?
like.
I am here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with our agenda. First, should we stick with the agenda? You guys want to do the budget?
Please.
Okay, Don, what do you want to start with?
Do the general fund first. So all three funds, water, sewer, general fund, all in good shape so far. We'll start the general fund. Revenue so far to date through November are at 48.8% of the budget, which is good news. Looking at local receipts specifically, on the next page, everything except for motor vehicle excise is really on target or exceeding our budget expectations through November. And again, if you remember, I feel like a broken record, but motor vehicle excise, that big first commitment doesn't come in until January or February. So we really won't start seeing that revenue come in until that time. But otherwise, we're looking in good shape there. And then when you look year over year, we are down 4.2%. But that's okay. We estimated a 10% decrease in local receipt revenue. And like I just said, almost all of our local receipts are on or exceeding our budget expectations. So just because that year over year shows a decrease, we're still in good shape. So I just wanted to point that out. On the general fund expenditure side, we're at 43.5% total budget spent. Not seeing anything out of the ordinary at this point. With any of the specific departmental lines, I do want to note that as of November 30th, this reporting period, there's about $322,000 of COVID-related expenses kind of buried in these departmental lines, mostly in public safety. As I've mentioned before, I've created essentially a catch-all account in emergency management to track all of our COVID expenses, which will then be reclassed to various grant accounts. I'm actually working on summarizing everything through December 31st to do a true up at that point. So these numbers are actually technically overinflated because of that. So about $322,000 of expenses will be coming out of here and going to various grant accounts. So that's the quick update on the general fund. Happy to take any questions.
One of my questions had to do with, well, first off, the excise, the room and board thing, that makes sense. But there was another one that was really like surprising. I'm going to look at that in a sec.
Is it motor vehicle?
Yeah, that was another one. I'm just looking. One was like way out of line. No, there was a negative number on one of them. There was negative 80%. It wasn't this.
Oh, investment earnings is negative.
Oh, yes, exactly. Why are investment earnings so much hit? I mean, I could understand some, but not that big.
Well, through November last year, most likely the market was doing better. Again, that doesn't really concern me at this point. When you look at it budget to actual,
Mhm.
we're actually ahead of target
Okay.
for our investment earnings. It's just we're conservative with the investment earnings anyway. I want to say budget probably 50,000. I remember
Most of
right.
it,
About
most.
30 grand. So,
Uh-huh.
you know, we try to be conservative every year. Right now, we're at 55.8% through November. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're down from last year. That's kind of out of our control. It's just the market.
Right.
And most of that stuff is just probably MMDT, not actual investments, because most investments are outside of the general fund. So this is more interest on interest-bearing accounts.
Okay.
Like I said, we have an MMDT, which is technically a semi-investment account that we have a cash deposit in as well. But yeah, that I wouldn't be concerned about at this point.
Where did Fran go?
Are you still there, Fran?
He's looks like he's in the attendees section again.
Oh, he went back out there. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, can we get him?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, Fran.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you just explain what, just because I don't know what charges for services mean, the 5200 line item or 4200 line item, right under payment in lieu of taxes?
Yeah, charges for services is pretty much all related to RTF, the transfer station. So most of that would be purchases of bags, demolition and construction disposal. We get paid for that when they come in and drop that off. Give me 1 second. I'll actually pull up the account detail so I can tell you specifically which lines, but it's pretty much all related to the RTF. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. Yeah, so trash bag fees, recycling income, which we really don't get much at this point. The bulky waste, we get money in for that. And then the C&D, the construction demolition disposal. Those are the 4 accounts, all related to the RTF that are grouped into that charges for services line.
And it's down substantially because of lack of charging for construction and demolition, I would imagine. Wasn't that halted at a certain point? Because it seems like everyone's at the dump these days. So I was just curious.
Good question. I'd have to take a little deeper look into that and check with Brian Joyce and his folks.
It's actually on target year over year. I mean, it's like 50. We've collected 50%.
Yeah, that did sound odd. So charges for services were only down year over year, $200.
Yeah.
Let's see, charges for services. We're actually exceeding expectations at this point. You may be looking at a different.
I'm looking at favorable, unfavorable. So I might be looking in the wrong column.
Yeah, we're actually the thing that we're actually the most behind. We're actually, believe it or not, CD disposal
Let
is
me
actually.
explain that, right? So favorable, unfavorable, it's kind of compared to budget to actual, right? So we're budgeting in charges for services 213 grand. We've collected 107.
Oh,
So
okay.
budget to
Not
actual, it's just
year after year.
yeah. I've been thinking about changing that because there has been some confusion in that wording. It's kind of like the reports you and I had gone through, looking at the available balance and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just comparing the budget versus what actually came in. So really here,
What's the difference?
the more important piece I look at is a percent of the budget received. And that's really the indicator kind of on how you're doing at a certain point in time.
And I'm thinking about comparative to the prior year, just to get a sense of whether we're on track or not. And
So the next report down on page 3 is the year over year. And so the charges for services, you see an unfavorable change of $200, $205.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so that's not bad. That's what I was really looking for. That's the true number I was trying to find.
And then,
Yeah, so this is essentially, that's how this report is presented. The first page is essentially the balanced budget, looking at the revenues, expenses, giving you a full look at everything. The second page of that report are the local receipts only, budget to actual.
Mhm.
Third page, local receipts only, comparing year over year. And then that fourth page is kind of just a combination of where we are from July to November, and then what would have made up the 12-month period before that to get us to a year to look at the budget. Just another way of kind of slicing and dicing, taking a look at how the year's going. That's essentially how this 4-page local receipt report is put together.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
if you flip to the actual line item, you'll see, which I have up on the screen if you can see it. There's 4 fees, as Don said.
Mhm.
Fee and disposal is actually up over total. It would be 4 months or 5 months into the year, we've actually already collected almost 5,000 more in revenue than we expected for the whole year. So
That makes more sense to me.
yes. So C and D is well. Now what's way down is recycling income, because the recycling market basically collapsed. So so unfortunately, you can see we've gotten $761 in recycling income there.
Okay.
This is in the big thicker. This is in the what's it called? Revenue Fund 1 revenue, year-to-date revenue. It's in the first line of the third column over of the email I sent. So that's the line item revenue accounts. So
Okay.
do you want me to go to water or sewer?
Let's go to water. All right, 1 second, I'm just taking a note on that as we're looking at next year's budget. I'll have to adjust that recycling income. Let me pull up water. I know you have it. Again, as I mentioned, all our funds are doing well through November. Water's doing great, 51% total budget collected. Reason we're so ahead of that is just the water usage has been high month over month. I know Chris gets monthly updates on the actual water usage, and it's been up, I think, every month this fiscal year. Chris, is that accurate?
It's been, I think we're 8 consecutive months of increased water usage.
Yeah, so.
And that
looking-
makes sense, Don, because a lot of us have our kids living with us who have brought their own kids to this.
Sure. So when you're looking at the first page of their water usage charges, that's clear right there. We're at 68.3% collected, meaning that we just committed that much more. I believe it was a couple $100,000 each of the first 2 quarters, more than we initially budgeted. So water use charges from a budget standpoint looking great. Sale of water to Linden Ponds is on target, slightly ahead. Another big driver of being in such a good spot is our system development, or our hookup fees. We're actually at 204%. So we budget 40,000 and we've collected 81. One other thing I want to note. No, those are the 2, really. Usage and system development are the real big drivers of.
What is the rental lease?
Say that again?
What is the rental lease income? What are we renting or leasing?
Oh, so we on one of the towers.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's the cell phone stuff.
Yeah, I think it's the Bear Hill tank.
Yeah,
If
I
I'm
got you.
correct. Yeah, we
Okay.
have. I believe it's Verizon who provides us with that rental income.
Good, thank you.
Sure.
Good question.
And then looking at the expenditure side, again, great shape. Water over the last few years has continued to budget conservatively, and really shows we're overall 63.7% expended. But really what I look at here as a big driver is the operating expenses, and we're at 31.4%. and again, just to reiterate, the reason I look at that as a main kind of indicator of how that fund is doing is because the indirect costs, the transfer, the debt service, those are all either done at the beginning of the year. Indirect costs and the transfer is done, as of July 1, as we're opening the book. And debt service is based on predetermined payment schedule. So that's not going to really follow in line with any, a month-over-month budget trend. It is what it is. Most of them are due in August and then November, and then scattered throughout the rest of the year. So that's the reason why for water and sewer, we specifically look at the general expenses to really tell how we're doing operationally. Any questions on the water department? Water report. If not, we can move on to sewer, Chris. And for sewer, 48.5% collected. Usage is in line and follows water commitments. So we've seen the trend and increase in water usage, which is reflected in the usage commitments for sewer. Sewer use is at 46.7%. Like water, they've had a number of connections. They're actually at 275% of their budget. They budget 80,000 this year, and we've collected 220,000 through November for connections. So again, those are the two big drivers on the sewer fund as well. We actually collected 103 just in November. So November was a good year, good month for the sewer department. And then on the expenditure side, 57.7 overall spent, and almost just in line with water. They're at 34.5 for their operational expenses. So they're looking in good shape there as well. So that pretty much sums up sewer. Looks like Lee has some questions or is trying to talk there.
Yes.
You need to unmute yourself.
We can't hear you.
Sorry. Is the grinder pump fee going to be gone this year?
I believe that's the plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the select board actually approved that in December, I think, Lee.
Okay.
And then it's gonna, and the ownership's gonna be turned over to all the individual homeowners. So you'll be the proud owner of your own grinder pump.
I already own it.
Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Chris, you may know this answer, Chris. How close to 100% subscription is the sewer plant? How many more hookups can we have before we're fully subscribed?
There's not I can't give you a precise answer to that.
Roughly.
Yeah, there's still capacity there's been some work done up there. Obviously, all the membranes were replaced this last year,
Right.
and there's been a lot of work done on I&I infiltration and inflow. Is that right? Infiltration and
Inflow.
inflow. So there's been a lot of work to cut the amount of water and stuff that leaks into the system, particularly down around the harbor where when there's sometimes flooding, water seeps into the manholes. So there was work to try to get the capacity numbers down. So I would get the flows down. So I'd have to check back with Brian. We were kind of at capacity means if you're at 80%, you're pretty much at capacity. If you go over on a regular basis, you have to get a new permit. You have to amend your permit. We were getting very close to that. There was still enough room for like the odd connection here and there. No individual home produces a particularly large amount. I don't remember what that figure is per home. Again, I can have Brian Joyce come back to a meeting at some point, or if you want to reach out to him directly, Fran, or I can get some information.
So
Well,
the
the average home is going to put out 65 gallons per day per person, roughly, just for rough figures. But so you're thinking right now that we're close to capacity, but we still have room.
Yeah, based on the estimates, there was still theoretical capacity for 390 CJC, which the board is still negotiating potentially the sewer commission to allow them in, and theoretically South Main Street. And then the plant would effectively be at capacity.
Okay, thank you.
What's 390C?
That's the, I'm sorry, Helena, I'm used to the acronyms. It's the,
On the job.
it's the new
Oh, yeah,
building,
the new one, the
Yeah,
new
yeah.
building.
which has 20 units of affordable rental housing in that building. So,
Uh-huh. And is that going to be that, it's obviously not section 8, it's the other section, section 42 or what's
yeah,
called?
I couldn't spit off the section to you, but it's rental, and a quarter of the units would be permanently affordable.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty sure you guys know the difference. I forget the number I think it's called 42. Normally
40B, it's 40B actually.
40B. And the difference, guys, it's actually better
Oh,
to
yeah,
rent
40B.
40B, and I'll explain that. And the reason being is because the government is more involved in making sure the units are up to snuff. And so if anybody is looking for affordable housing, it's better having 40B than Section 8. So that works well. And not all the units. What are we going to have? How many?
There's 20 in the building, and a quarter of them or 5 of them are permanently deeded affordable.
Okay, and then what does that bring us up in terms of our 10%?
It would be all 20 units count. We don't have the final census numbers in yet, so we're still waiting for that. Once we get those, which will probably come sometime this year, we'll know. But the estimate was that we would be somewhere between 20 and 40 short. So if this finally gets through and gets approved, I mean, a building's being built, but once the wastewater connection is finally sealed, whatever that may be, those 20 units will go a very long way to balancing out the
Yeah, that's what I thought. And we'll get a few for the housing that's going to be at the corner in West Corner.
Yes, right. When that finally gets built, those would be affordable units.
The ones on Elm Street, those used to count, and now they're being rebuilt. So that's.
They count. They'll still count. No, those 4 units will still count.
I know, but that was part of our old numbers, or do we detract once it got taken down?
No, because they're being replaced in kind, so it'll be a trade-off.
It'll be a neutral. So that's
it'll neutral. 4 went away.
Are there any other possibilities for 40B housing?
Yes, there always are.
Okay.
I mean, there's
no, in the pipeline.
No, so the housing production plan has a number of locations. The 90, the Stop and Shop Plaza is the most prominent of them.
Right.
And then, the West Corner could be a couple of units. There's a possibility of buying out a couple of other units in town to make them permanently affordable. We have some rental housing in town already, at the Lightkeepers, for example, at the Historical Society, but they're not officially deeded, so they have to go through a different process. So if we could get those could be added into even though they're technically affordable housing, they don't fit the definitional requirements. So if those could be made definitionally approved, they would count towards the 10s.
40B is not the expression. 40B is when there's a hostile takeover of housing. That's what you're thinking, Chapter 40B. It's not that. It's another number. Yeah, 40B is a negative situation. That's what we have to approach.
40B sets the requirement for affordable housing stock at 10%.
Yes, exactly. But I'm thinking, what is it called? What they're doing at Stop and Shop? That's a particular number. It's not Section 8. It's something else.
No, it's not Section 8.
And I'm sorry to detour back to the
Are we a
sewer.
little off the agenda?
Yeah, but that's okay. We're trying to think about money coming in. It's not totally off. Yeah, go on, Jean.
Yeah, just 2 quick follow-up questions on the water and sewer connections. Chris, I know that you mentioned South Main Street. I should know this, but I don't know what you're talking about. 1 and 2 is it looks like there's a substantial amount of user connections, and just very on a basic level. Are these new houses that are being built that are being connected, or like renovations and additions that we didn't expect because, the pandemic spurred on a bunch of building, which is what I'm assuming, but I'm just, I don't know.
Yeah, no, those are good questions. So to answer your first one, so one of the areas that are unsewered in town is South Main Street. and that impacts the Gulf. So it's basically from the village, a little bit past the village, all the way to the Situate line.
Okay.
And we're friends, as a matter of fact. So that area is not sewered, and that is potentially has inflow issues into the Gulf. The Gulf is the single largest contributor to nitrogen issues in the Cove, even though the sewer plant empties there too. So that is an area that the Sewer Commission has targeted as a priority area for sewers. In terms of the, I have to double check it. Maybe if you've been to more spot on meetings of water than I have recently, Don. I don't remember what the connection fees are for sewer if you're buying in. And sometimes, by the way, you may be tearing down a house and putting up a new one with more bedrooms, so you got to pay an extra fee.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So there's like an upcharge if you're doing that. The connection to sewer is fairly steep. I want to say
37,500 to connect. And then there's another smaller fee for 9,400 that I got to double check what that is. But basically, those big $37,000 hookups, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them this year.
so. It's not that many, but there's a lot of money in them. And in water, there are people there are still some people who are on wells that they can put over. And some of these might be, some of these I think are sometimes larger connections if someone is building a bigger home. That's happened. That's what's happening more in town lately is people are tearing down homes and building bigger ones.
Yep.
Sometimes you have the connection. So,
Okay.
And sometimes people add a second meter. There's fees for that too, for irrigation purposes. That way you don't get charged. Right now, sewer fees are based on water meter usage. Theoretically, what goes in goes out to some extent. So what people do if they're using a lot of money using sprinklers, they meter that separately because obviously that's not going to the sewer system. Pay a separate fee for that. But we can get the more details. I can just ask Public Works.
No, that's sufficient. I was just generally curious.
Yeah, it looks like 6 new service connections on the water side.
And it's about 6 on the sewer side,
Yeah.
as well as additional renovations or additional water capacity on the water side. Okay.
Budget. Does anyone have any other questions about budgety stuff? I'm sorry, financial reporting, not budget, but whatever. So we'll plan to do an update for you at the next meeting, which probably, again, based on your when you set the meeting later, will be either late this month or early in February, and that'll be through the half year. Don will work up the numbers through the end of December for, again, probably February, either late January or early February. But we're also in, so if we're going to pivot, are we ready to just move on to this item, Helene?
Yes.
So I think I may have actually accidentally popped it up on the screen. But I did just send out to all of you the draft, or what really is the town meeting schedule that the select board has adopted. Let me share it with you. And now we're in January, right? So town budget requests are due this week, and we're then we'll be doing internal conversations with departments over the next couple of weeks. The enterprise fund budgets, which are water and sewer, are due the end of later in the month. Hopefully by next week, I will have first cuts on any articles that are being proposed for town meeting. That's the request that went out in December. I've asked Tracy to send out a reminder. So we have some idea of what articles. We have a whole lot of routine ones that happen every year. And obviously the big ones like the budget and the capital plan, those are always in there. Those are being reviewed now. The capital plan has already started review. The budget presentation would be February 23rd. That's we had normally done it in January, but because town meeting has been scheduled for May, so May 24th is the date right now for town meeting. It's later than normal, but I figured that bought us some time to get more shots in people's arms and hopefully be able to do an in-person town meeting, perhaps outside, but at least in person. And the town election will be June 5th. So that sets up a calendar that looks like this. February 23rd with the joint budget presentation. And then we try to do a series of meetings in March to go over the water budget, the sewer budget, citizens petitions, the end of March, hopefully the capital budget, and in April, the school budget. And then everything would close by the end of April. So, that gives us, it's basically about a month behind our traditional schedule. But that should give us, again, hopefully it'll give us time to get things healthier, and then we'll be able to, again, meet in person. There's a number of articles from last year that'll probably recur. I mean, just to give you a little bit of a highlight here. So we're talking about, obviously the capital plan that's under review. There's a lot of intense conversations going on about that. There's some zoning articles that are kicking around. There's a zoning working group that's looking at those. There's probably some small bylaw tweaks. Anyway, nothing crazy. There would be one-off spending items. One of the things that we didn't have a special this year, so we didn't allocate up free cash. Either we will incorporate that into the annual meeting if we're not spending any money this year, or we might end up having to do a special inside the annual. I don't have a definite determination on that from council. If we need to do some stuff that applies, since we're having the meeting so late. And again, right now, even with the state budget was adopted. We're and we've been held harmless for this year. I don't know what next year looks like. Now, the good news is that things seem to be, even though yesterday was a memorable day in Washington, it seems like things are going in a little bit better direction for state and local governments. So we might see a little bit better response for assistance from the Congress that comes into session over the next couple of weeks. So the good news on COVID is that the COVID CARES money, which was expiring at the end of December, has been extended. We didn't get any more money, but it meant that if we get any reimbursements from FEMA, we'll be able to spend them through this calendar year that we're in now. Donna's still working those up and figuring out where we are. We did close out free cash well. We knew that. We had told everybody where that was coming. That said, there's a lot of it is one-off stuff. I mean, there was things we didn't spend the last quarter of the year because we were all in lockdown. And this year's budget was tight. We had to tap some reserves, some side reserve funds. We really squeezed. So what next year looks like, I wish I had more clarity. I'm a little more optimistic that we might get some support from the federal government. The stock market economy is roaring. So and Massachusetts seems to be getting better, though not on the hospitality and restaurant side. So as COVID eases, we can be cautiously optimistic that we're getting a little bit better 2022, fiscal 22 than we thought. But that's the annual town meeting and NHL election schedule. Anything about the dates or schedules? I sent that out to you. You might want to, we've historically, Gene, done, we've tried to do joint meetings rather than have a committee come again and again and again, to have a joint meeting, which allows for a full presentation. Both boards can ask, advisory and select board are typically the two boards that meet together, can ask questions. And then again, if either board wants to ask more questions, you can have a separate meeting and so do that. It just makes a single presentation. It's likely that at least for the first few months of this, and probably through the entire town meeting cycle, we'll be doing it this way. I don't think we're going to be doing a lot of live in-person meetings, probably not until May, providing we're getting more inoculations out there. So it's going to be. Now we've been able to make webinars work. We've had some pretty big select board meetings, and the planning board has had a lot of big stuff going in webinars. So we're kind of making it work. And in some ways, it's easier. People can be at home. I mean, more people can participate in meetings like this. So, so the plan would normally be to do about 4 joint meetings. One is just the initial budget presentation, so everyone can see it. Then the advisory committee goes off. You review all of that independently. The select board does it as well. And then there's usually joint meetings on the capital budget plan, water and sewer budgets, and citizens articles. So if there are any citizen petitions, usually you should have to make one presentation up front. So that's kind of take a look at that agenda that I said, the calendar I just sent out. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Can you send that calendar to each of us, please?
I did. I just
Okay,
did.
great.
So you should theoretically all have it. So
Awesome.
it says draft, but it's actual. So it's been adopted by the select board. So that's what we're working with. And again, so it kind of this month, there's a little bit of time to prep and pull together. Don and I were talking, it's hard. Normally we know things a little bit more clearly now. I mean, it literally just adopted a budget a month ago for this year, right? And I know they did a revenue forecast, but it was so vague that I don't know what we can judge it on. And again, over the last, just this week, things changed from a congressional perspective. So, state and local governments were not getting anything, and now it looks like we might get something. So that's good news. And the good news that came out of the first COVID is that mass transit and all was getting helped, which will help the state. So any easing that comes from the state is going to help us. Any questions about the out-of-town mini or town elections? Okay. Any more questions of Don? If not, we can say goodnight to Don, unless you want to hang out.
Thanks, Dawn.
Good night.
And then I know Tanya's been lurking out there, so it's all yours, Tanya. Very patiently waiting, I should say.
Hi, Tanya.
Tanya. Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Here she comes.
I kept myself off. Good to see you. So, Chris, I think I'll need to.
Yes, let me
share
give
screen.
you the power.
All right, great.
Hold on.
See you guys. I miss you.
Miss you too.
Okay, you're now co-host, Tanya. You can show what you want.
All right, great. So I am here to give you an update on our solar energy array request for proposal and what the recommendation is and how we're going to move forward. And so I'm sharing my screen. I'm now going to put it on the slideshow. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I also just sent a PDF version to Rob and Helene and Chris so they can forward it to the rest of all of you. So this is just a quick update, and there's a lot of exciting opportunity and a lot of exciting things for us to think about, but this is focused only on the solar energy request for proposal. So it's informational. There's no ask. We're going to talk about how successful the process was, what our potential savings are, and what we're recommending going forward. And it's awesome because we received bids of basically 5 to 9 times what the town's municipal usage is. So we're trying to figure out ways to use those potential sites for people in town, for others who might be interested in the solar energy. And the potential savings to the town is $75,000 to $125,000 per year based on bids that we received. So this has been it's an ongoing process. We are here. If you remember, part of why we wanted to rush this was there were some incentives that were going to ratchet down at the end of 2020. There's good news that that's now been changed, and we expect that there could be more incentives going forward with the Biden-Harris administration. So that gives us a little bit more, it just makes us want to make sure we're getting some savings as we lock in a 20-year contract, as opposed to taking a penny or so, which wouldn't result in the highest savings and could potentially block potential future savings. So we've received RFPs from 9 bidders. These are all very well financed, very reputable. The 3 that we're recommending we proceed with is Amoresco for the school carports, Palmer Capital for the DPW site and potentially third-party sites in town, and Select Energy, who has an interesting relationship with a municipal consortium that gives us a lot of flexibility to proceed with sites that we did not get pre-approval for, but we can work with Select to get some design information on potential sites that could be useful. So those 9 bidders submitted proposals for 16 different sites in Cohasset. The 6 sites that were approved for lease under the Chapter 30B approach at the town meeting in June. These provide some good sites and they provide some not so great sites. The smaller sites are not so great. They also identified public sites like the Cohasset Library, potentially Canopies there, the wastewater treatment plant, which is particularly interesting to us. We'll explain why. Not the wastewater treatment plant. The water plant is particularly interesting. And then the MBTA Cohasset station, we are in conversations with that developer. They did not submit a bid. They weren't prepared to submit a bid, but we're still in conversations with them because that is a potential site where we could either purchase for the town's usage or put together a community solar program where people in town can purchase directly from that site. So our first mission was accomplished. We obtained a lot of great information on those potential sites as well as pricing. So the good news is we were able to take the potential savings from each of these different types of sites and rank them on what our preferred sites would be. The best and most lucrative would be the DPW site. Maybe. We don't know if we can expand it. We'd have to go through a post-use closure permit process, expanding the existing site, but we're asking Palmer to work with us to see what we can do there. The school roofs are also very lucrative. The problem, as you know, is they're not scheduled to be replaced for the next 3 to 8 years. The good news is those are now back in play. They were not going to be in play because of the ITC investment tax credit running out on the federal level, but that has now been extended for 2 years as part of the most recent stimulus package for COVID. So we have a little bit more breathing room, which is great. We were rushing this through because we thought this was ratcheting down and we were we were ready to be able to lock and load, but we now have more time to work with that. Parking canopies at the schools are another option. Other town sites become less lucrative. Third-party sites currently are not as lucrative as the town sites, but we're working with Palmer Capital to sharpen our pencils on those and see what we might be able to do. And in particular, the water plant site, as I mentioned before, and I'll explain why, could be a very good site for our town. So the additional savings, we sort of blocked it out as the different major users. The Cohasset schools are about 75% of total load. The enterprise funds are also pretty significant. Town buildings are serviced, other town buildings are serviced right now by the existing landfill, which gives us about 20% of our usage on the town's municipal load. And then we don't want to totally overbuy in case we engage in energy efficiency and reduce our load. So we just want to be careful. We might have some safety margin. And this is how the number breaks out. We're right now targeting about 76.5% of the total town municipal load. That includes the enterprise funds. So the existing electricity cost usage, including the water plant and the wastewater plant, is about $628,000. We are trying to target roughly 3/4 of our total usage, which would cover a little bit more than half of our total billings because of the way the credit works out. But there is some room to expand that. And as we've said, we received a lot of bids that give us more solar than we need. So the recommendation, which has now been approved, so we are moving forward, again, this is informational, is to look at the parking canopies at the Osgood School, Deer Hill School, Middle School, High School. The school committee approved our ability to proceed with negotiations for those sites for that type of solar energy array. There is also the town parking lot canopies, water plant, and of course, we're talking to the MBTA Cohasset Station developer, and we're working with Palmer Capital on the private sites to try to identify what we might be able to do. The school roofs are now back in play. The select board gave us permission to look at the school roofs, and they're back in play because this federal tax credit has extended. But there's still potentially a queue that could get filled very quickly on the state level. So we're still trying to move forward, but we haven't eliminated the roofs at the school roofs. Once they get replaced, it'd be perfect to be able to put some solar panels on top of that. And I think we should also look at whether or not that investment tax credit can be used for the school roof replacement. On the residential side, if you replace your roof and then put on solar, you get to deduct 26% of your investment cost. We don't know how that works for the municipalities, but we're going to look into that as well. So the parking canopies, here's some examples. This is something off the internet, an example of what it would look like. I thought it looked like Deer Hill. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about canopies. School committee is concerned about the aesthetics, but we've asked Amoresco to come up with some designs that might be able to solve some of the aesthetic issues and other concerns. And the power would go directly into the schools. The water plant site, we're working with Select to look at this. This is a great site from an engineering perspective because it's right next to one of the two main feeder lines that comes into Cohasset. So we know we could connect there with no problem. There's enough capacity. If there's a lot coming into town, then we'd sort of reverse flow it out. But it's a great site to be able to connect. It also solves the problem, which is this is a line that goes out a lot and is the second worst on recovery timing on National Grid's Massachusetts system. So we're looking at the water site. They gave us a small bid for the rooftops. It's not a lot. Maybe there is a potential for parking canopies. Maybe we can put something near the sludge pits. Maybe we can do some land clearing and put a larger solar energy array there. Nobody likes to cut down the trees. Some of the incentives go away when you cut down trees. But there might be something, we're looking at the school buses and the parking for the school buses and what we might be able to do here or there or at the schools. So we've asked Select to give us some design ideas for the water plant site.
Tanya, don't forget about 5 or 8 years ago, the water plant was selected also, and Wayne Sawchuk stood up at town meeting and got it shot down. So it's the beauty, you know. That's the trouble with Wayne. He convinced town meeting that it shouldn't go there, but keep that in mind. I think it's tremendous to do it, but that's what happened.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I was there as I gave the pitch, and I was slapped down hard from that vote. But our role is to bring the ideas forward.
Good.
One of the concerns was we didn't have a plan. And so when we came to the town, we said, look, give us permission to lease the site and we can then go to a developer and have them develop a plan.
Good.
And the town didn't seem to like that. So what we're trying to do now is go with Select to develop the site plan. And then it turns out if we go through the municipal consortium, we can bypass 30B. If the select board doesn't feel comfortable doing that, we can take it back to the town. So we have the ability to move ahead with Select Energy, their developers, and they can absorb that risk, and they're willing to work with us on that.
And the water plant's got a brand new roof. Just make sure you know that. They got a brand new roof, so it's pretty good.
Yes, the Water Commission is totally supportive of this.
Fran, you have a question.
Yeah, Tanya, no mention about the Wilkett Commons or the swimming club parking lot there. That's a pretty nice piece of land to put a solar array on.
Yeah, and we did receive bids for that site. The problem is, as you know, that parking lot is not owned by the town. So that is in our third-party site category. And that requires working with the Cohasset Swim Center.
Right.
We had some preliminary conversations with them in May about whether or not we could even consider that as a potential site for the carports. And they're open to it. So we just need to decide, is that something we really want to pursue? Because it's a third-party site and because it's a carports, the savings may not be as big as a simple ground mount or rooftop, but it still is an option for us. And it'd be nice because it would protect the cars and the seniors. And, you can get into your car without standing out in the rain. You don't have any ice or snow around there. It's these carports are really popular when they've been installed at schools and other places.
Yeah, it's a nice piece of square footage there too. So
It's very sizable. You're right, Fran. It's very sizable.
Yeah, Tanya, didn't Hingham install carport? Well, maybe it was the MBTA. Do you know if it was Hingham or the MBTA who installed the carports in the T parking lots? Which work exactly as you just said in terms of like, you don't walk out to snow on your car when you're coming out of school or the train. I mean, I understand the aesthetics, but there's a pragmatic side to it too. Beyond the obvious, you know, energy savings
Right,
and green energy.
right. So the way the MBTA works is they basically gave a concession to a single developer in certain areas to develop the sites. So we're in touch with that developer for the one who did the Hingham site and the one who would be set up to do the Cohasset site, but they need an off-taker. So the answer is a developer developed the site, but Hingham is the off-taker for that energy. And again, that is something we're still open to. We had reached out to them. They weren't prepared to do a bid before the end of 2020. They were busy locking in their ITC and everything else. But they said first quarter 2021, they'd be ready. And fortunately for them, the investment tax credit was extended. So they still might be competitive.
And
But like I
Tanya-
said, we received so much
Yeah.
more than what the town needs.
Tanya, I have a question about the school roof, like especially at the high school. I remember that the state was gonna have us be able to do it sooner than later, but I guess they kicked it out even further. Is that correct? For money?
Yeah, so I thought it was the Deer Hill roof that they did, and that's where the Deer Hill roof was scheduled, but Chris could probably identify which roof it is. One of the school roofs, which was ready to be replaced under a 20-year life designation,
That was the high school.
was going to be the high school, so was going to be replaced within 2023 to 2024, I think.
Exactly.
Right. And so
And-
what ended up happening, somebody's declared it now as a 25-year roof life.
I know. That was unfortunate.
I know. The school roofs are the bane of my existence because they're such a great site. And the most valuable solar we can get is if we're putting it directly into the building, because that's the way the incentives are set up.
Yeah, when I was chair of the school board, we were just counting the years, and then they went ahead, and it's like being told the marathon is 26 miles, and then you haven't been told that you have another 3 more miles to go. It was very frustrating.
Tanya,
So,
Tanya?
yes.
did you folks look at the dam around the reservoir, the Aaron River Reservoir up in Beechwood? That's a big piece of open.
For hydro?
Yeah, no, for a solar array.
We did not. We asked the developers to identify any other sites they thought might be feasible in Cohasset. But they did not identify that. There's also interesting technology now coming out for floating panels.
Oh, yeah.
And there are some nice incentives on the floating panels on the state side, which can offset some of the higher cost of the floating panels. And in some cases, the floating panels have been found to be very good, especially for reservoir water, because it protects the water, it decreases the evaporation. It's just, there's a lot of reasons that they're becoming popular, but they're not quite there yet from an economic point of view.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and also the Aaron River people like to use the water for water things like kayaking and stuff.
And it's a view. It's a nice view for the people who have their homes there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure they necessarily like.
no, right. That could be controversial. This is really
Yeah,
helpful.
we're cognizant of that.
This is really helpful. But what
Yeah,
do you
no, we're
what do you need from us, let's say in May at the town meeting or for the articles in terms of moving forward with this?
Yep. So right now we are set up. Here's an example of some of the third-party sites and other town parking options that were provided to us. Again, this just shows how much energy we have available to us. And as I said, we've got a break on the ITC. We've already gotten permission to go forward with negotiations. That's enough to get us in the queue for Smart 2.0. The ITC extending gives us more breathing room on the federal side, and we anticipate there might be more goodies coming down. Massachusetts just issued some very aggressive goals with respect to becoming net zero by 2050. And that's on all levels. As you know, they've also banned, they want to ban the sale of internal combustion engines in Massachusetts in 2035 and later, following California's lead. So there's a lot going on in Massachusetts. There could be more incentives to allow us to move forward, not just on the solar, but with the microgrids and storage and other reliability things. So we are right now set on being able to move forward with negotiations with our 3 bidders that we have given a letter of intent to award to. That is all they need to be able to get into the state queue for the Smart 2.0 incentives. And because of this extension of the ITC, they have more time to be able to get some of those tax credits, which is about 26% of the upfront cost. So we are right now in negotiations. If there's a need to come before the town for permission to lease, like the water plant, for example, we will definitely let you know. But right now, we are able to move forward with all of these sites without going before, legally, without going before a town meeting again. It's a siting post-use closure permit, getting permission to move forward on some of the details at the select board level and the school committee level once we finalize the negotiations.
You don't need to vote from us tonight or anything like that.
Purely informational to let you know where we are, and if something comes up where we do need a vote, we just didn't want to surprise you. There's been a lot of work that's been going on, so this just to let you know where we are. But we right now have everything we need to proceed, and we just want to also let you know, because there's a financial component to this, what the potential savings are.
Fran?
I have one more comment. I've attended several of your recent meetings, and I have to say I'm really impressed with the depth and the width of your attacking this whole problem and how you put it all together. I'm really to be commended. I think you've done an outstanding job of gathering all the information and putting something forward that's understandable by anybody in town. I just so good for you guys.
Fran, I'm blushing. Thank you. We love having you at our meeting.
Tanya's one of our own. She used to be on the advisory, guys.
That's right. So I know what you guys want and need. Numbers.
Exactly.
With dollar signs in front of them. So
Rob,
there we are. So that's it.
Rob, do you have any questions, Rob?
I had, but they got answered in the course of the discussion.
So you know, I sent this around. There's some appendices that give you sort of a view of, I'm going to stop sharing, that give you a view of how this works, how the money flows, what the potential options are. We at the Alternative Energy Committee are trying to capitalize on this. We look at these as building blocks for the town's future microgrid reliability and resiliency. So we're excited to figure out how to be greedy and gobble up as much of this as we can.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Nice job.
Bye. Thank
Nice
you.
job.
All right. Fran, I'll see you next week. We have a meeting on Thursday.
I'll be there.
Chris,
Awesome. Mike.
Chris?
Yeah.
When you send the budget stuff to all the advisory people, can you add Tanya's presentation, please?
I think she just sent it to you and I and Rob. So
Yeah, so if you could send it to the rest of the people, I appreciate that.
okay.
Thanks. Okay, so we're moving forward.
Colleen, that's where I thought it was next week. It's the alternative committee next week. I've got it written on my schedule right here, and I'm
That's
confused.
no problem. You would have showed up next week for them and this week for them, and
Day late and a dollar short.
it's okay. Don't worry. I'm getting a sense of things. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda.
Minutes. Did you approve any minutes?
Yes. Okay, we need to approve the minutes on November 19th. And do we have a motion on the floor to on the screen to approve the minutes of November 19th, 2020?
Make the motion.
Okay, we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Who's missing? Oh no, there's 5 of us. 1, 2, 3, 4. Somebody's missing.
No, you're all there.
Okay, we're all here. Okay, Helene Lieb, aye. Yes.
Jenkins, aye.
Van Collins, aye.
Jean Healy, aye.
And Rob?
Rob Hillman, aye.
Okay. those are-
Aye.
Yes, so 5-0. So we're done.
Do you want to set a next, do you want to officially set a next meeting?
Yes, yeah, the next meeting, I was looking at the calendar, will be February 4th. And that we'll do budget updates then. We're also going to do our reorg. So we're going to elect the new chair of the advisory and the vice chair. And hopefully we'll have somebody else taking notes as well. And then we'll look at the liaisons to the various committees and departments rather in town that we want to divide up. And that the person who's chair will, head that. So February 4th. So that gives us some time to recoup from tonight and some of the the people who are not feeling well to catch up on all the minutes stuff and some of the budget things. And is there anything else you wanted to put on the February 4th, Chris? Besides the reorg and a budget update?
I'm sure between now and then you'll add things. You'll probably want to start with some warrant stuff at that point, possibly.
Yes, yes.
I will hopefully have a first crack at a warrant, so you can at least start taking a look at that. So,
Yeah, that would be great. And we're going to have the reorg at the beginning of the meeting, and then the person who's chair would take over from me at that point. I would just lead the reorg, the vote, and then turn it over the rest of the meeting to the person who's the chair. And then I stay on till May, I believe, as just a member. And then we will continue to try to get a replacement for John, as well as, I think I'm the only one who's terming out. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I can double check. Yeah, I'll double check.
Yes. I'm not positive, but I think so. So anyway, and I think that's it for tonight, right?
Just let you know, there might be, Gina has a question.
Okay, question, Jean?
Just a logistics question. Chris, if you could send me a recording, because I did the minutes from memory last time and it was hard.
So this is being recorded. So
Yeah.
This will be posted up on the town's YouTube channel fairly quickly.
Okay.
So if you can't find it there in like a week, just let me know.
Okay.
Oh, and I did think of, when we were in the housing thing, because we're thinking about hookups and stuff, and we're thinking about, 40, whatever the 40B housing. The other thing besides Section 8 is Section 42 housing. That's when the, that has to do with the state getting more involved in how it looks like and stuff. It has some benefits that Section 8 doesn't. And people could look into that. I believe his property is going to be Section 42 housing, not Section 8. Okay? And you could check with me with him about that, the developer. But I believe those are Section 42. And I studied the difference because I was concerned knowing the difference, considering that was important to the town. Because we need to have, 10%, at least 10% affordable housing in town. Fran?
Yeah, Chris, we're back to the sewage issue again. Any idea when we're going to be looking at South Main Street as far as that project goes? Are we still looking about hooking up to North Situate or connecting to Hull? Where are we?
So the select board authorized a sewer decision matrix study.
Terribly.
So the GHD, the firm that actually did some work with the sewer department some years back, is now working to come up with what amounts to like a decision tree about where the town needs to go to make decisions, right? So it's assessing all the other studies and things that have been done and so that there'll be some concrete next steps. It's like, okay, if the town, if capacity is an issue, what are the options and what do we need to study next? Or if regionalization is an answer, what do you need to study next? That kind of stuff.
Right.
That'll hopefully be together, I think by the end of this month, and there'll be some more public discussions, and then there'll be next steps on that. And just so you're all aware, there is a vacancy on the sewer commission. Remember, John Beck resigned for personal reasons. He had actually been off. He had been off and then came on just to fill a slot, then ran anyway. And he's had some health issues. So there's a vacancy. The select board is seeking candidates for that. There's also a vacancy on the Conservation Commission. We had a member move out of town, so they're looking at that. And there's still an effort to find folks to serve on the School Facilities Committee. There's 9 members, 3 appointed by the school committee, 3 by the board, select board, and 3 by the moderator. And right now there's actually 4 applications for those 9 slots. So, I mean, it's been hard and people have been a little bit otherwise focused, obviously, this last 6-8 months. So if any of you know anybody, because I don't think you can serve on the advisory and at this, I don't think you can serve on any of the committee if you're on advisory. But if any of you who wants to serve on that, please pass them, have them fill out one of the application forms online, or call my office and Tracy can get an application form over.
Right.
Because we're really encouraging people, should be a good diverse cross section of the town. I don't know if anyone served. Did any of you serve on like a past school facilities committee, back in the past 15 or 20 years ago? No? Okay. Okay. Well, if you know anybody who's interested in doing that, it's got to be a very important group. It's in the bylaws, so you can look it up in the bylaws if you want to.
And the other good idea is I've been encouraging some of my daughter's friends who have moved to this town. They left Cohasset and they came back and bought houses in Cohasset. And so these are like young people between the ages of 32 and 40. And a couple of them now one of them is on the master planning committee and they're getting involved. So it's nice if we could step it up. So some of us who've been doing this for a real long time, in my case, 45 years worth of Cohasset commitments to the town, it's good to see some young blood. Not that we don't have wisdom when we're in our 60s and up, but right, Fran?
60s were good.
Yeah, right. I know. But we got wisdom, but so it's good to get some of these other ones, working. But anyway, so I think that's it, Chris, unless somebody has topics that were not anticipated that are important.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's take Helene Lieb. Yeah, aye. About
Lee
adjournment.
Jenkins, aye.
Jean?
Frank Collins, aye.